Hi, Bullpups. It's Mrs. Long here with today's counselor conversations. As you might remember, we're going to do this series throughout the year to kind of bring you just a little bit more insight on helpful tips for your mental health and overall well-being. Today, we are lucky enough to be joined by Jacqueline Kuhn. Jacqueline is a Spokane mental health counselor. You might remember that we've told you guys your Gonzaga Prep counselors work really closely and really hard to connect with community resources like Jacqueline, so that when we have a student who may need some mental health counseling, we can connect them very quickly and intentionally with somebody that we feel like is a good fit. So Jacqueline is one of those wonderful counselors that works with many Gonzaga Prep students and has been a great resource. She primarily works with teens experiencing anxiety, depression, or working through some past traumas, and actually provides the option to bring your faith into the healing process if that is something you're interested in as well. So hi there, Jacqueline.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, of course. And we are lucky enough to speak with Jacqueline today a little bit about the topic of anxiety.
Yeah.
So we've got three main questions for her, and we'll just kind of dive right in if that's all right with you.
That's great with me.
Okay. So I think it's fair to say that we are all facing some unknowns. We're dealing with uncertainty these days in our lives.
Yes.
What would you say for students that may be struggling to decide if what they're experiencing is typical life stress, or maybe starting to cross into the world of anxiety that they might need a little extra help with?
Yeah, I really like that question. I think that's a good question for all of us to be asking right now, because if you were struggling with some stress or anxiety before the pandemic hit, your levels probably went up a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and for people who didn't struggle with it before, we're seeing that rise more and more. So I'm getting more and more clients calling me to start counseling because of this pandemic and all the stress it's put on people's lives. So great question. I would say for your students, there's two questions if I were a student that I would be asking myself. If I might need a resource outside myself to help manage anxiety. I'll make it really simple. So the first question that I would ask myself is, am I experiencing anxiety and stress at higher levels more days than not during the week? And that's been happening for a little while. So like if you've got a big event coming up and that's creating some stress and anxiety, and it starts on Sunday night, your stress and anxiety levels, and the event's on Friday, and then it goes away because the event happened, well, then that's normal. But if you've got that stress and anxiety happening more days than not during the week for, I would say, like a month, then that's a good indication that you need another resource to help manage that. The second basic question, and this is if there's a yes to either of these questions, that would say, get some help. But the second question would be, does my stress or anxiety, does it impact my life negatively? So some stress and anxiety, like you just said, is normal. It can even be positive. It can help you focus or meet a demand in your life. But if it's impacting your ability to sleep at night, if it's impacting your ability to hang out or manage your relationships with friends, if it's impacting your ability to attend school classes or get your work done or pass tests, like maybe you have really high test anxiety and you know all the answers to all the questions the night before and then you just blank, right? Like that's impacting you in a negative way. And so that means you do need a resource outside yourself to help manage that in yourself.
Okay. So you heard it there, Bullpups. If you're feeling like you're experiencing this anxiety or stress more often than not on more consecutive days than not, or once you kind of really start to see it impacting your life negatively in those areas that Jacqueline just touched on, maybe it's time to reach out to one of us or talk to your parents or your primary care provider, and we can see if maybe counseling is a good fit for you.
Yeah, excellent. Exactly.
Okay, question 2. So as a school counselor, I know that there are a lot of different strategies or coping skills that we can all use to manage our stress or anxiety. Can you share maybe one or two simple strategies that perhaps students could implement on their own at home or at school that might help them feel a little less anxious or have, stop those ruminating thoughts a little bit?
Yes, I can. I do want to put, I don't want to say a warning on this, but just kind of draw your attention to, I'm going to talk about mindfulness and a couple of techniques using mindfulness to calm yourself down, to manage that anxiety. But mindfulness is a skill, and there's a very simple definition to mindfulness, and it's just being more aware of the present moment. But if it was easy to do, there wouldn't be a bunch of apps and books and self-help courses, right? Like we would just be able to do it really easily. So it takes practice.
Okay.
So the first strategy I would say to practice mindfulness, to be more aware in the present moment, is to try what's called a mindfulness walk. So the goal of this walk is to go for about 20 minutes, and it's not to raise your heart rate and try to get exercise in. You're really just trying to go outside, be in nature, and then pay attention to what's around you through your 5 senses. So taste might be a hard one unless you're like, chewing gum or, have like a hard candy in your mouth, which you can do. But like sight, sound, smell, like what do I see? What are the color of the leaves? Are they changing for fall? What do I hear? Are there people on the same path? Are they having conversations? What are they saying, right? What's the sound of my footsteps feel like? What does the air feel like on my skin? And what you're trying to do through your 5 senses is just get more grounded in your body. So you're not focused on future worries, and you're not focused on past mistakes. You're just focused on the present moment, which really helps to alleviate anxiety. So that's the first mindfulness strategy to try. And again, I would say you're going to want to do this for a few times before you start feeling better, because you might not be able to do it well at first. It's going to be kind of hard to corral all those thoughts, and that's okay. That's normal. The second mindfulness strategy that I would try is, and you can use your phone for this, and kids love to be on their phones, most adults too now. So download what's called a meditation or mindfulness app, and you can download free ones from the Google Play Store. So Calm is one, Headspace is another, and then the one that I use most often with clients is called Insight Timer, because most of those meditations are free. All 3 of them are going to want to push you to sign up for a subscription and pay money, but you don't have to do that. You can just do the free parts, But Insight Timer is great because they have a lot of different narrators, and they have a lot of different topics that you can focus on. So they have ones for sleep. They have ones that are just about releasing your anxiety or worry, just breathing. So deep breathing is a good technique, but it's hard to do on your own. So if you use a guided meditation that's 5 to 15 minutes long, you're just going to play that and literally just close your eyes and follow along with what the narrator's saying. That way, you don't have to try to get yourself grounded in your body. You've got a guide to help you do that. And so I would practice that too, and try to practice it for a few nights in a row, or maybe a few times before you start your homework, just to get grounded and a little calmer. And then after a few times, you should start to feel a difference.
So that was Calm, Headspace, and what was the third app?
It's called Insight Timer. So it's just like having an insight into something. Yeah. Okay. And it looks like when you're on the Google Play Store, it looks like a brass meditation bowl. That's the symbol. Yeah. It's a good one. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. All right. And then to wrap up our conversation today, because I think one of the wonderful things about you is, that you work really well with our students. And often students have maybe misperceptions of what actual mental health counseling looks like. Yeah. And I think that the biggest question mark out there is what can I expect? Yeah. So for students that feel like maybe their anxiety is happening more often than not. It is impacting their negative life. They're trying these coping skills on their own, but really just kind of need to take that next step.
Yeah.
Can you just briefly share a little bit about what that first intake session with a mental health counselor looks like, and what they can expect actually starting counseling?
Yeah, what a great question, because you're right. I think a lot of people who haven't tried mental health counseling before are intimidated. They don't know what the counselor's going to be like, and it feels like this is an authority figure. It's going to give you a bunch of homework to do, and you got to do all these things. That's not what counseling is supposed to feel like at all. So I guess I'll start with, so let's say like you are recommending, like a student's asking about counseling and you're giving a referral. You're probably going to talk to the student and their parents, and then they're going to contact me. So from that first step is going to be, I'm going to answer your email or your phone call and set up another phone call that's 20 minutes and it's free, and it's a consultation call. And that's just to decide if I would be a good fit for you and your needs. And then once we decide that, we'll schedule an intake session like you just mentioned. And that first session is not a lot of counseling. It's a lot of me introducing you to what counseling is and kind of leading you through what a session will look like, and then getting a bunch of paperwork out of the way. So you're going to sign this informed consent document that's like 4 pages long, and we have to go through all of it. I'll send it to you ahead of time, and then we'll just kind of go through it. I'll just briefly highlight each paragraph and you'll initial. And that'll take about probably 20, 25 minutes. And then you're going to have some other forms to fill out, and you're going to, now during this pandemic, you'll mail them to my office because you won't be able to hand them to me. But once we get through that, I'm going to then ask you to just talk to me about what brings you in today to see me. Why now? What's going on in your life? And kind of fly over that at about 60,000 feet. Don't really get into too many details yet. And then what do you want? Like, what are you hopeful for? Like maybe your teachers or your parents or everyone else is putting some expectations on what they want, but this is your time and this is your space. So we'll add some of that in if you're feeling some pressure, but how do we take some of that pressure off and just help you have a safe space to say whatever you need to say, to get out all of your thoughts, to really be able to process your feelings without judging yourself or feeling judged by somebody. That's the whole goal of counseling, is to really just process through and figure out what is the issue here. Because oftentimes you come into a session thinking you have one issue and the problem isn't the problem. It's something else entirely. And so it might take us a while to get there, but that's what the first session will look like.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think, what's important for everyone to remember is, like you said, it's just we get some logistics out of the way, and then a conversation about you and what you might need and what support would be helpful, and kind of go from there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you and all of the support you provide us here at Gonzaga Prep. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome. I was glad to come on. It's nice to see you.
Yes, nice to see you as well. And bullpups, don't forget that your school counselors are here to help. Like I said, we can connect you with a mental health therapist if you feel like that's what you need, or just be a listening ear when we are experiencing that typical stress that comes with everyday life, that comes with high school. So if you are struggling, we are here for you, and you are not alone. We will see you next time. But again, Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining us, and have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.